What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of The Root of All Crime. I'm your host with less swag than butter toast. My name is Zach. Joining me today is a really good friend of mine. One of my groomsmen during my wedding is C-Dub. C-Dub, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on, guys? Not much. Just hear about some true crime.
True crime. Everything going good in life? You know?
No, fabulous, man.
Fabulous. No criminal activities you need to tell us about?
Well, every day's a crime, but you know.
Every day is a gift.
Depends on how true crime you are.
True crime. The root of all crime.
That's right.
Anyway, so what we're doing here at The Root of All Crime is each episode we're gonna take turns sharing information to each other. I'm gonna do this week. He has not seen the information I have looked up, researched, all that good jazz. And the idea is to get a genuine reaction out of him. So if I say, like, he chopped the body up and flushed it down the toilet, and he goes, "What the fuck? What the fuck?"
It happens.
It does, well, not often, but yeah. It has happened before.
It's still fucked up. So fucked up.
Couple of warnings that we need to give. First off, we will try to keep it PG-13. There's no logical scenario where I can keep my mouth from cursing. Same thing with him. So we'll try to keep it PG-13. No promises. We've already kind of broken that.
It's a given fact that if you curse, you have a high intellect. So sorry, you just aren't there yet.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's okay.
Also,
you'll get there. Maybe.
We also will be doing a little bit of drinking. So if you're not 21, don't drink.
Yeah. Be safe.
Be safe. Be wise. Sanitize.
Don't drive either.
Yeah, that too. With or without alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't like driving.
The way people drive today, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
When I got my license when I was 16, I was literally my brother's taxi cab. Can you go pick up my friend? Can you go drop me off? No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
I'm trying to play a game.
Mom! Alright, so that's what we're going to be doing here at The Root of All Crime. Another thing we're going to be doing is what I'm going to be calling a crime puzzle. And we're going to get eventually a crime puzzle.
Yeah.
Like the, was it PBS special?
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing a crime puzzle every episode. And if I get it, so I'm going to ask him, if he gets it right, I have to do a shot of alcohol. This week's lucky elixir is Fireball. If I get it wrong, if he gets it right, I have to do the shot.
You already said that.
He gets it wrong, he has to do the shot.
Yep.
El Chateau de Fireball.
Smells like Fireball in here, though.
That's cinnamon. That's cinnamon.
Yeah, it's a good meme.
It's a good meme. I love that. It makes me laugh every time. It smells like Fireball in here. No, cinnamon. That's cinnamon, Karen.
Come on, Karen.
Come on, Karen. You're better than this, Karen. Damn doors.
Yeah.
All right, so
Ghost.
You got your brain juices flowing.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Ready and set.
Let's see what you got.
All right. Could be hard. Could be easy. I don't know. We'll see. On the first day of the school year, a geography teacher was murdered. You know, true crime. Might as well, right? The police had 4 suspects. The gardener, the math teacher, the coach, and the school principal. But they all had alibis. The gardener was cutting bushes. The math teacher was holding a mid-year test. The coach was playing basketball. And the principal was in his office. The killer was arrested immediately. Who killed the geography teacher, and how did the police solve the mystery?
I mean, I'd assume that the geography teacher had committed suicide because he's a geography teacher. But
that's rude.
He was arrested immediately, so I'm going to have to go with the principal on that one.
Why do you think it's the principal? You want me to read it again?
No. I just that's my intuition there.
Intuition.
Yeah, he's the only one that's not doing anything.
Let me reread it for you. You're wrong, by the way. Let me reread it to you. On the first day of the school year,
First day.
a geography teacher was murdered. The police had 4 suspects: the gardener, the math teacher, the coach, and the school principal. And they all had alibis. The gardener was cutting bushes. The math teacher was holding a mid-year test.
Oh, yeah.
The coach was playing basketball. And the principal was in his office.
Fucking math teachers, man.
So, who did it?
Math teacher.
Math teacher. So, since he got it wrong, drink up. Fireball. Fireball. Yeah, I won't
Be good.
make you feel left out. I'll do one too.
Man. I'm gonna need another one.
Another one? You're wasteful.
I know. So wasteful. Good deal.
Good deal. So we both did one.
Yeah.
I did mine for the first episode. You did it because you suck.
Yeah. I suck.
All right. So after the crime puzzle, we're going to get into our actual topic at hand. So let me ask you a question. When you hear the profession nursing or nurses, what comes to mind?
Candy stripes.
Animaniacs? Hello, nice.
Yep. Something like that. Kill
Okay,
Bill.
so in your experiences, when you deal with nurses, they're generally like helpful,
Yeah.
kind, supposed to be. Well, today's serial killer is a nurse, and all right. So we got established that. Second question: when you think of a serial killer, what mostly comes to mind?
Somebody who's crazy. Gone over the deep end.
Well, I think of men. Think of all the serial killers out there, like the famous ones. There's Ted Bundy, who not only had that Confessions tape on Netflix earlier, but also the Zac Efron movie, which is really good if you haven't seen it.
Is it?
It is really good, yeah. Jeffrey Dahmer, Gacy, like you said, Ed Gein.
Yep.
So all these famous serial killers are men.
Yeah.
But since this is our first episode, I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to have a woman serial killer.
Yeah, because there really are women serial killers. It's not just limited to one sex.
Right. I've read a study somewhere before that women are less likely to become serial killers because they generally commit theirs on crimes of passion.
Right.
Whereas men are more premeditated.
They've had time to think about it, stew on it, and then just decide to go for it.
Right. So today is going to be a nurse serial killer by the name of Jane Toppan. Have you ever heard of Jane Toppan before?
Nope.
Well, Jane Toppan is cuckoo.
Well, that's what we're here for.
That's what we are here for, to talk about crazy nurse
Cuckoo candy
serial
stripes.
killers.
Yep.
All right, so
Was she at least hot?
I don't know.
Man.
Because
Look at
she
the
was
picture, man.
well, she was born. Jane Toppan was actually born Honora Kelly in Boston in 1857. Now I'm sure we could find some pictures, but cameras weren't really good back then, so there was no filters or anything. So she would not be pretty by today's standards, I guess, because she wouldn't have the little halos or whatever they have.
They at least have her mugshot,
Right, I'm sure they do somewhere. So, Honora was born into a family of Irish immigrants, and she was the youngest of 4 girls. Her father's name was Peter Kelly, and he was actually a tailor, so he worked on clothes. Peter was a little interesting. He is said that he actually sewed his own eyelids shut.
Wow.
And he became known as Kelly the Quack.
Pretty crazy there.
Yeah. So, I guess one day he was like,
I've heard of people super gluing eyelids shut.
yeah. But he was a tailor. He had readily available needles and yarn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But to do it to yourself, that's even worse.
Right. The hand-eye coordination you would need.
Man, once you get the first eye done, what are you doing for the second eye? That had to be a mess. A real mess. Yeah. So,
like I said, he was known as Kelly the Quack. So, as we can see, there's already mental instability in the house.
Right.
Peter was also suspected of abusing his girls. So, like physical, sexual, all that kind of abuse. I don't know. But,
some kind of trauma.
Yeah, some kind of trauma. But we know there's like mental instability in the household. In 1863, so 6 years later, Honora and her sister Delia were taken to an orphanage, and the orphanage was called the Boston Female Asylum. And what it did is it placed girls, I was who would take in girls, or like who were homeless, who came from poor families, stuff like that, and it placed them into respectable homes at the age of 10. So they raised these girls till they were 10, and then they were put as be like basically indentured servants.
Yeah.
You know, getting paid to.
Well, it is an asylum, so things were a lot different then.
I don't know if like asylum in this scenario, in this case, is the same as like an insane asylum is.
Right.
Asylum could be like just a gathering, like place where people would go.
Right.
I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a 10-year-old girl. So, in 1863, her sister Delia ended up being a prostitute and an alcoholic when she grew up. And she had a sister named Nellie who ended up in an insane asylum.
Not the rapper.
Not the rapper. I would hope not, because he would be old. But, like I said earlier, we could see like mental instability throughout the family. Her sister's in an insane asylum. Her dad sewed his eyelids shut. She had a sister became a prostitute and an alcoholic. And we know now that runs in the family. Alcoholism runs in the family. So it's not a good scenario anyway. At the age of 10, she became an indentured servant to Mrs. Anne C. Toppan in Lowell, Massachusetts. And that's when she changed her name to Jane. So this is when she first became Jane Toppan. So it's 1867.
It's crazy how they could change their names and completely create new identities at that time, because not everything was put on paper at that time.
Right.
So a lot more stuff could be swayed to their favor.
Right. All right. So when Jane was in school, so as being part of an indentured service, she could go to school and stuff. She actually did really well in school, and she had a lot of friends. But for some reason, she became unattractively fat, and she started showing signs of being a sociopath in school, and was telling like egregious, like huge lies. Like, for instance, her father sailed around the world. Her sister's married to an English nobleman, and her brother was decorated by Lincoln at Gettysburg. Which we know that last one's not true, because she was from a family of 4 girls.
Right.
And she had a sister in an insane asylum. When she graduated high school at age 18, she was technically released from being an indentured servant. She got $50 from the Toppan family, but she chose to stay on as like a regular servant. So, I mean, she grew up with not having a very good home, and then she became, she was still a servant, but she was
full-time servant.
No, full-time servant, yeah. So, like I said earlier, she was taken in by Anne Toppan, but Anne Toppan died, and her daughter Elizabeth became Jane's boss. Right. And it was said that Elizabeth treated Jane a lot better than Anne did. So I'm assuming the whole scenario, like stepmother, like me.
Right, and then
maybe Elizabeth,
her own daughter would be probably closer to her age, so they probably would have had some sort of a friendship already before she became her boss.
Right.
So.
Elizabeth married a guy named Oramel Bingham. That's a kind of a Oramel. That's
Bingham.
Fun name. But for some reason, a dispute happened that forced Jane to move out after 20 years of being in the same home. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the dispute was between Jane and Elizabeth, Jane and Oramel and Elizabeth, but something happened and Jane was forced to leave.
There was a bad altercation.
Yeah, somewhere. Something happened. She began training to become a nurse at the age of 33, and she trained at the Cambridge Hospital in 1887, so Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Hey, it just goes to show you that it's never too late to go back to school.
Exactly. And, nursing is pretty well-needed profession, and back in those days, it was mostly women who did the nursing.
Yes.
Men were doctors, women were nurses. And Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've heard of
cliche.
Yeah. So that's where she got the nickname Jolly Jane. It was in the Cambridge Hospital because she had a really outgoing personality. However, she liked to gossip and even celebrated students being kicked out of a program. So I would assume she would do it behind closed doors so patients wouldn't see.
Somebody had to know because...
Yeah, something happened. I don't know what, but she liked when students left the program. Got kicked out, whatever.
Probably because she had made it and they hadn't.
Maybe. But while she was at the hospital, she continued to tell lies, like big lies. Like the Tsar of Russia offered her a nursing job. I don't think the Tsar of Russia would know about a single nurse in
Boston,
Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yeah. She also started to begin stealing things, and the students stopped liking her. So I said she was well liked in school. And now they're like, no.
we kind of figured you out.
Yeah, we don't like you. But she must have not done it in front of the doctors because the doctors still thought she was one of their best nurses. So she had some kind of affinity toward being a nurse. And this kind of comes into play later when she starts actually killing people. The hospital administration became concerned with her obsession of autopsies. So she would go do it in her free time, just go look at autopsies, which is kind of be a red flag anyway.
Yeah,
but
it'd be a little morbid.
Very morbid. The hospital also didn't know she experimented with morphine and atropine on elderly patients.
Of course not.
She would make fake charts and give medication so patients would drift in and out of consciousness. So on top of the family mental instability, and her lying, like showing tendencies of a sociopath, she would also, experiment on elderly patients and give them medicine.
She had readily access to medications and doctors to prescribe them for her to administer.
Yeah, she was faking charts. She was giving her patients these medicines that were unnecessary so she can experiment with them.
Yeah, she's abusing her.
From what I could find, Jane's first attempt of murder was on a patient named Amelia Finney in 1887. So, 30-some years after she was born? 30 years, 33 years, something like that?
Well, she was 33 when she started the nursing.
So that might have not been accurate. But sometime when the hospital, she started murdering people. Jane gave her a dose of a better medicine that caused her to become unconscious. Amelia become unconscious. And then she remembers Jane crawling into bed with her and began kissing all over her face. Amelia did. Something startled Jane and she left. When Amelia woke, she thought it was all a dream, which would be a really weird dream to have anyway. But then she saw 14 years later of what Jane was doing that made her realize it wasn't a dream. It actually did happen.
Right.
So,
at least she survived.
Yeah, she survived. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's kind of unconfirmed how many people she actually killed. I mean, she's a nurse, so she can have access to all these different patients, all these medicines. But I mean, I'll kind of cover that in a few minutes, but there's no real way to know.
Yeah, there's no exact number.
Yeah. So, after Jane left the hospital, she got a job at the Massachusetts General Hospital, but she got fired for giving out too many opioids. But the doctor still recommended her to healthy clients. So she was still getting work as a nurse.
She was still getting practice.
Yeah. But she wasn't, but she got fired from the actual hospital because she was getting out too many drugs. At work, she was very cheerful. She was highly skilled and passionate. But outside of work, she was a completely different person. She liked to drink beer, guzzling beer. She told dirty jokes. And she, one of her favorite things to do was turning her friends on each other. So,
yeah, creating instability.
Mean girls. Mean girl stuff.
Yeah.
But as I said, she was very good at her job. She was making $25 a week compared to other nurses in there at the time, they were only making 5. So she
Wow.
was making 5 times more than what
The average nurse was.
the average nurse was. Yeah. So she was good at it. So I talked about Amelia Finney earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I said was she remembers Jane crawling into bed with her and like kissing all over her. That's because Jane would get a sexual thrill from killing her patients.
Well, most of them do get some sort of sexual thrill.
I mean, she would climb into bed. She would get an erotic charge and couldn't resist climbing into bed with them, holding and caressing them, like while they die in her
she
arms.
has an attachment with them for being their nurse.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems kind of legitimate.
I mean, not to me, but
Well, I mean, for her state of mind and
Right.
her form of thinking, she's been taking care of them, and then now it's like, well, I want to put you out of your misery, but I also, it makes me feel a certain way. So,
Right.
there's an attachment.
right. At some point, she befriended her elderly landlord and his wife and killed them one at a time. She went on to describe them as old and cranky and feeble and fussy. So, like, she just killed this landlord and his wife because she didn't like old people, basically.
Well, she's got to look at them every day.
Yeah. One of her fellow students would remember her saying, "There's no use keeping the elderly alive."
They'd give away right there, guys.
Yeah. I mean, okay. In 1889, a lady named Mary McClear got ill while visiting Cambridge Hospital. The doctor sent one of his best nurses. Mary died of poisoning. So Mary died somehow after visiting the hospital. I don't know if that was with Jane or not, but I would assume so.
Yeah.
A month after Mary died, Jane killed a close friend by strychnine poisoning. A close friend, by the way.
Close friend.
The reason why is because she wanted to get her friend's job as a dining matron at the St. John's Theological School in Cambridge.
Huh.
So she killed her friend to get her friend's job. But the administrators couldn't ignore complaints of incompetence and stealing, so they fired her. So she killed her friend to get the friend's job, then got fired for stealing.
Doesn't sound good,
No.
I mean, it's just bad business.
Bad business. So I mentioned she killed her friend with strychnine poisoning.
Right.
So I'm going to read off this description, and I want you to kind of compare it to the Amelia Finney case. Okay. Strychnine is a white, odorless, bitter, crystalline powder taken by mouth, inhaled, mixed in solution, or injected intravenously.
Right, so
Amelia says she took
Yeah.
a bitter medicine. So
something bitter.
it could have been strychnine that
Right.
Jane gave her. So strychnine is actually a plant found in southern Asia and Australia, and it was used back in those days. It was used to treat human ailments. You want to know what it's used for now?
What's it used for now?
It's used as pesticide to kill rats.
It's
It-
a poison.
It also is uncommonly mixed with street drugs such as LSD, heroin, or coke.
Yeah. Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. Might get strychnine.
Yeah.
And what it does, it messes with the nerves that control your muscles. So some of the symptoms are agitation. Some symptoms of strychnine poisoning are agitation, painful muscle spasms, difficulty breathing, respiratory failure, and brain death. So this kind of like paves the way for what Jane did later, but she liked controlling their muscles, like having them not be able to breathe and stuff.
Where she's needed.
Right. So remember Elizabeth? Eventually, at some point, Elizabeth would often ask Jane to come back home to visit, and occasionally she would. She has to keep up this appearance of being
Regular person.
Yeah. In the summer of 1899, excuse me, Jane visited Elizabeth at Buzzards Bay, I would assume Massachusetts. While she was there, Jane targeted Elizabeth, like she was going to kill this girl. While there, Elizabeth complained to Jane of depression, So Jane invited her down to the Cape for lunch. They had corned beef, taffy, and mineral water. But Jane laced the mineral water with strychnine. Strychnine? Yeah, I did that to you. So don't get agitated.
Don't watch this guy.
Jane was quoted as saying, "I held her in my arms and watched as she gasped her life out." So she killed one of her longest, I'd call them friends.
Yeah, a friend.
She killed one of her longest friends.
That's the second one.
She,
Man.
So Jane moved into Elizabeth's house because she wanted to marry Ormel. Remember Ormel?
Yep.
This guy got lucky. But before she got to him, Jane killed the 77-year-old housekeeper, Edna Bannister. So, moving into this house, the housekeeper's dead. Why did she kill the housekeeper? She wanted to impress Ormel with her domestic skills. Like, she wanted to show, hey, I'm a good housewife.
I can do it all.
I can do it all.
Take care of you when you're sick. And the house.
Ormel wanted nothing to do with her as a housekeeper or wife.
Right.
So then she poisoned Ormel.
Of course.
And nursed him back to health.
Yeah.
That didn't work. So then she said, I'm pregnant with your child. And that made him mad and he kicked her out. So Ormel killed his wife, moved into the home, killed the housekeeper, killed the housekeeper. Then she tried to prove her domestic skills. Ormel goes, no, don't want it. So then she poisoned him
To try and
to nurse him back.
Yeah.
No, not.
What's
I'm
that
good.
syndrome whenever a patient falls in love with their caretaker? There's a syndrome for that.
I know what you're
Can
talking.
we get a ghost on that one?
What's up?
When a patient falls in love with their caretaker, there's a syndrome.
While our ghost is looking that up, Ghost is our fact checker. I should have mentioned that earlier. She is to call us out on all of our bullshit. So while she's looking that up, so like I said, she tried to prove her house skills. Nope, nothing to do with it. Poisoned him. Nope. Okay, well I'm pregnant.
Right.
Well,
right,
guess what? Get out.
Get out. Yeah. Did they even have sexual relations
for
her to even claim pregnancy?
I don't know, but Ormel was pissed enough that he told her to get out.
Right.
So whatever.
Man.
So after she got kicked out, Jane tried to overdose on morphine.
Ooh, she
So
tried to kill herself.
She tried to kill herself, but she failed.
Man.
So it makes me think like she didn't actually want to commit suicide because she could kill people with medicine. She knew how to do it. She knew how much it would take.
Right.
But she didn't give herself enough.
Mm.
I think she didn't really want to. I think she was just trying to do it for attention.
Get attention from
Yeah.
Orville or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after she got released from the hospital for the attempted suicide, she moved in with an old friend, Sarah Nichols, and her brother, Amherst, in Amherst, Massachusetts.
Well, this is saying, so Florence, it's a Nightingale effect, but that's when the caretaker falls in love with their patient.
Okay, but
The opposite of that would be one of the Freudian, the Sigmund Freud philosophy
the
things.
philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like kind of like how Freud has how the sons fall in love with their moms or whatever.
Mm.
He has it's like that where the patient falls in love with their caretaker.
The Carmen complex?
I don't know.
Okay.
But Nightingale syndrome, I think, is what you were thinking of. But that's when the caretaker falls in love with their patient,
Right.
which it sounds like she experienced. Nightingale effect is what it's called.
Right. There's also one where it's kind of similar where like patients would start sympathizing with prisoners would start sympathizing with the guards.
What'd you
Right.
call it? The
Carmen complex. I think that's where the daughter falls in love with the father. The exact opposite of the Oedipus complex.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, going back, so she moved in with a friend,
Right.
Sarah Nichols, and Sarah's brother in Amherst, Massachusetts. In 1901, a Massachusetts detective began to follow Jane in connection to the Davis murder. So the Davis family was a friend of Jane's, and she rented a cottage from them. Mrs. Davis went to see Jane in this cottage, and Jane gave her a cocktail of morphine and atropine. So that Mrs. Davis died.
Right.
I'm not sure.
That's definitely an overload.
I would assume nothing happened to the Sarah Nichols or her brother. I didn't really get much. I didn't find much at that, at least. So she eventually moved in with the Davis family. After the death of Mrs. Davis, she moved in with Mr. Davis to help take care of him. She killed Mr. Davis and his married daughters, Minnie Gibbs and Geraldine Gordon. So she just annihilated this entire family.
Right, this is the second one.
Yeah. I wrote downfall on this because this is when she actually gets caught.
Okay.
So how did she get caught? Well, like I said, the daughters were married, right?
Mm-hmm.
Minnie Gibbs' father-in-law, one of the daughters, became suspicious because the entire family had died.
Well, yeah, it's kind of...
That you figure that would be like something people would think about, but it took until 1901.
Yeah, well, disease was a little bit more rampant, so who knows what could have happened.
Right. Okay, fair enough. But he ended up hiring a toxicologist and had the judge exhume Minnie's body.
That's unheard of then, because a lot of times they didn't want to disturb the body.
Right. So Minnie's autopsy did reveal that she died of morphine and atropine overdose.
Wow.
So the whole family was murdered, and they now have proof. But, okay, so going back to your point, though, like, disease did run rampant. I understand that.
Yeah, I mean...
But, like,
not that.
Four people die, but one just walks out, no problems.
Yes, that's the biggest thing, is that it seems like every family that she's involved with, she's the only one that walks away. So it couldn't really be a disease. Maybe after the first family, it would be something to pay attention to.
Right.
But after the second family, you're going to have people asking questions.
Right. Jane was finally arrested in Amherst, Massachusetts on October 29th, 1901, and she went to trial for the murders in 1902.
Yeah, she missed Halloween.
She did.
Yeah.
Just
so close.
She probably would have dressed up as a nurse.
Yeah, hey.
Hey.
She probably would have went on a rampage that night, too.
Maybe.
You never know.
So, remember I said earlier that we weren't sure how many victims Jane actually had?
Right.
She confirmed to her lawyer that she murdered 31 people, but she claims she killed over 100. And we know she's a liar.
Yeah.
So we don't know if those numbers are accurate or not.
Yeah, definitely.
If she actually killed 100 people, if she only murdered 31 people, it could be I would guess somewhere in between the two.
Well, I mean, she's already got, 8 right now? 9?
That I've mentioned, yeah.
That you've mentioned before she got caught. And
So
I understand that there's something, like when she worked for the hospital, she could have had some more besides the one that lived. But I don't know. I mean, it seems kind of questionable there because she couldn't actually go through with it. So how long after her attempt was it that she got fired? And there could have been some time in there that she could have actually killed some more people.
Right. So we have the Davis family, Mr. and Mrs. Davis, Minnie Gibbs, and Geraldine Gordon. So there's 4.
Yep.
Edna Bannister, the housekeeper.
Yep.
Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
There was some other people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It don't matter. She killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, do you want to know why she killed all these people?
What'd she say?
She said the reason she gave was when she was 16 in Lowell, Massachusetts, her boyfriend dumped her. He gave her a promise ring, but then fell in love with someone else. So like teenage stuff. She was quoted as saying, "If I had been a married woman, I probably I make sure to highlight probably.
Right.
Because she doesn't even know if she would do it or not. Would not have killed all those people. I would have had my husband, my children, and my home to take up my mind.
But you got to think, though, at the same time, how times have changed. Because in the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, a proposal was a big deal. Like, that means that this is set in stone and we're going through with this. And obviously something set this gentleman in a different direction, because it was a good thing for him, bad thing for everybody else involved with her, apparently. But I'd say he got away lucky.
Yeah, him and Ormel.
Because you'd think that if... why didn't she try to go after him eventually later on down the road?
Right.
After she had finally decided, hey, get some revenge.
Oh, Ormel. I don't think that's who that was, but...
No, right.
But, Ormel. So, there was an 8-hour trial at the Barnstable Courthouse, but she was found innocent.
Found innocent?
Yeah.
What?
On reason of insanity.
Well, and you plead insanity, you're going to get off.
And the jury only took 27 minutes to deliberate.
27 minutes?
Yeah, so they took a little less than a half hour.
That's ridiculous.
They took a little less than a half hour to be like, this bitch be crazy.
Yeah. It's throwing the nutter.
Yeah. And the reason why they thought she was insane is because all the time she tried to kill herself. I guess there were multiple times she attempted suicide. We know at least one.
I think more is probably just a morphine addiction that she developed over time. Because, morphine is addicting. And back then, those studies weren't done, so they would just give it out like it's candy.
Right.
And, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. It was given out all the time.
Dr. Pepper had morphine.
Yeah.
That's why it's called Dr. Pepper. So Jane spent the rest of her life at the Taunton State Hospital, and she died on August 17th, 1938, at the age of 84. Before she died, however, she stated her life goal was to have killed more people, helpless people, than any other man or woman who had ever lived.
Well, you got to think that her statement earlier about older people, I mean, as a nurse, you're there to take care of older people, but obviously she didn't find taking care of them satisfying. She found it as more of a chore, and so she wanted to... She probably thought that she was helping them by giving them a release of death. But
actually, it's funny that you say that, because there's actually a serial killer archetype called the Angel of Death.
Yep.
I don't know if she was the first one, but she was known as the Angel of Death from that point on.
Right.
So I'm sure it had a big helping hand in that archetype alone. Her favorite way of killing her patients was a mixture of the morphine and atropine. Mm-hmm. She also used strychnine. She had access to multiple medicines, multiple medications.
I mean, she got let go for the opioids for over prescribing, and opioids are can be a huge downer for people, and that would give her time to take advantage of people.
Right. And actually, some of her attendants recall her saying, "Get the morphine, dearie, and we'll go out into the ward. We can have a lot of fun seeing them die." So she eventually, at some point, she just didn't really care who knew.
Yeah.
She was like, we're just going to go kill old people. It'll be fun.
I mean, she'd already been called out for her stealing and her lies, so what's the point of hiding at this point?
Right. So, that was the story of Jane Toppan. What are your initial thoughts here?
I'm blown away at most of the stuff, because you'd think that people would start to take notice of some of this stuff, but I guess they just let things go a little bit more. It's crazy that she got away with as much as she did.
Right.
I know nowadays she wouldn't have made it past 3.
The thing that gets me is she was a nurse. She was someone you trusted to take care of you and to make I'm a nurse, I'm in good hands.
Right.
But she would take advantage of her mainly elderly patients, and would this because she felt there's no need to keep them alive.
Yeah. Seems kind of weak on her half, though, too, because her attack on elderly people makes them easily vulnerable. And so it seems a bit weak. It does.
So it seems a bit weak, but...
She is a female, and I would think that maybe her caretaker association with them would give her some sort of a passionate response, I would think. Because she did say it gave her sexual pleasure to lay with the victims and caress them, so I'd say she had some kind of physical attraction.
Right. But she was also one of the doctor's best nurses.
Yeah.
Like, even after she got fired, the doctors would still recommend her to, like, her wealthy patients.
Right.
Her, like, the,
Which,
house calls, basically.
It's amazing how she can deceive that one person, but everybody else sees something different.
Well, we also know she was a sociopath, so she was a liar. I mean, like I said, there was mental instability in her family, alcoholism. Like I said, she liked to drink beer. Her dad sewed his eyelids shut. One of her sisters, was in an insane asylum. Was a prostitute, and she would tell lies. So, I mean, I would say the signs were all there. Like all the ingredients for a bad situation happening. Yeah. So that was the story of Jolly Jane Toppan. I would like to give thanks to the crimemuseum.org, the New England Historical Society.com, and allthat'sinteresting.com for the information that I found. You got any final thoughts before we sign out?
Yeah, if you guys need to fact check this guy, go ahead.
Please do.
We definitely appreciate your feedback. Don't forget to like the video.
Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And for the root of all crime, I'm Zach.
I'm C-Dub.
And we'll talk to you later.
Have a
Bye.
good night.